1, and that is nominations for chair. Can I have your nomination? Thank you, Councillor Collins. So that's 3 votes for Councillor Redsell. Councillor Redsell, are you happy to take over now as chair?
Thank you. Nomination of vice chair. You have to nominate yourself.
I'll nominate myself, please.
Yeah, I think if we haven't got Councillor Worrell here, it's not.
I nominate Paul Arnold. If he wants it.
Yeah, I'm happy. Yeah.
Okay, Rihanna, I'm happy with that. Right. Okay. That's apologies for absence, Rihanna.
Councillor Worrell, please. Thank you. And yes, I've had Lee Nicholson and Sean Nethercott.
Everybody happy with the minutes of the last meeting? Councillor Collins?
Yeah, there was a bit in here on page 6, 1, 2, 3, fourth paragraph down. They were a little bit dated now. According to Ben Smith, it was time to increase the resilience and move towards renewable green energy, and reducing demand for oil and gas would make the country more resilient. Just an update for that. The European Union said that gas and nuclear energy is now classed as green. It's interesting. Just a comment. Thank you. Otherwise, their people will freeze during the winter.
Okay. I've had no items of urgent business that I know of. Rihanna, you not got any?
No items of
Okay.
No items of urgent business.
Any declarations of interest? Okay, thank you. Right, item 7 is Thurrock Green and Blue infrastructure. Is that Kirsty? Yep.
No, that's Doug.
Doug, are you there? For a cup of tea? Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can't see you on the screen, but we can hear you.
Oh, thank you for my name check.
Okay. Okay, Doug.
Well, thanks for the invitation to speak this evening. Yeah, my name's Doug McNabb. I'm an Associate Director at Land Use Consultants. We're an environmental consultancy, do a lot of work with local government, and we've been commissioned by the council to update your green and blue infrastructure strategy. So I was going to talk you through a bit about the work we're doing on that this evening.
Can I
Next
just
slide,
can I
please.
just butt in there before you go from that slide?
Yeah,
Can you
please
just
do.
go back. Is it what you're doing is trying to open up the river? Because we've got 18 miles of that river that goes on, and there's not much you can actually get to. I think East Tilbury is probably the one place you can, and Purfleet you may be able to get down to the river, but the rest of the river is shut off from people. I shouldn't think many people in Grays actually might not know the river's there, to be honest, because they haven't seen it, so they don't think it's there. So we're not opening up that enough. You know, going right along from Grays to Tilbury, we're not giving people access to that river frontage very much. I just hope you're looking into that a bit more seriously. Right, thanks for that, Kirsty, because I think where we've done the flats on Grays Riverside to the west of the borough, sort of, we've done that along the river. They actually look out to the river. But when we get up to Tilbury, we've got all that land along with nothing, you know. And when you look over Gravesend and you see what they've done on their frontage of their river, it's no wonder that everybody's going over there for the day, because there's more. When people get off those cruisers, they must think, what a place to come to. You know, it's, I hate to be awful now, but it is. I've been down there this afternoon, and it's a mess, an absolute mess. And when they get off from those cruise ships, they must think, what a blight on the community that is. If we can make a small change to that and start building on that, I've got a shiver gone down my thing now. Yeah. But we need to do something to give people an outlook of the river. If you was to see every afternoon on that river that people go down there and park a car and sit there and look at the river, it's so nice, you know. So we haven't given that, we haven't got there yet. We've not. I know we're heading that way. I hope we are. But that's nice to hear, Kirsty. Thank you. Thank you, Doug. I think we're, as a council, and I'm sure most of the councillors sitting here we've put an awful lot of trees in. You know, I know in my own ward we've done loads of funding, not just with the council, with ourselves. So we've put loads of trees in, and some of it is coming too late because we've already got developers who've never done any greenery, just put the housing up, you know, and never really done anything to put greenery in there. So that's got to be left now to whether we can do anything to those that have already, you know, that developer's already done that and not got any trees in sight. You know, it's very few anyway. So it's perhaps some of it's come too late, and hopefully we can move on from there. Councillor Collins. Why?
Thank you. Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Doug, for the presentation, which, to be honest, I quite welcome this presentation. I like the idea of green and blue infrastructure strategy across the whole borough. Councillor Redstall is absolutely right. I think some of the developments are too late. And I also welcome the fact that if we can get some of this into the design principles of before it goes to planning, and just make it that it's not just living walls or living roofs, but it's actually the fact of there is trees and there is green spaces to be, which is not what it is. They just think it's a code for planning development, and it will automatically come with maybe a living wall, and that's good enough. We already have a Section 106. We should be having Section 106 contributions that go towards the community, and putting in green spaces and parks and things like that are very much part of the community. So I don't understand why we can't use any of that sort of thing. And as for the Thames crossing, I really don't want it. 10 miles of green belt going to be taken out is really kicking in the face of your strategy of putting in more green and blue infrastructure. And so on that basis, as well as the river, which I think we should use a lot more of, and also open it out completely, is exactly what we should be doing. And we are trying to do something along that use in the river when the jetty gets done at Tilbury, and then it hopefully comes through, because I know there's a new jetty that's just been put in Barking and Dagenham, so I don't see why Thurrock can't get that as well. And sorry, Chair, can I just sorry. And yeah, I think I've just, and the other thing is the water management. Yes, we do actually need water management. A lot of Thurrock is in floodplain, and also if you live up by Stamford Lee Hope and places like that, you would have known that there was flooding that happened quite significantly. So we not only need a water management system and biodiversity, but I think we actually need the resources within the council to be able to manage that in a very managed way. So if you could take all them on point, that would be really good. Thank you.
Doug, do you mind if I just come back on a couple of bits? Is that okay?
Good. Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Kirsty. Just going back to something Councillor Watson said, I don't think I've found anybody yet that wants the road. It will go through fenland, natural fenland, so that will cut off. Water has to find its own way out, and it will find another way out. So it will be looking for towns to hit and everything else. Water is a great leveller, you know, because it's whatever we're doing. Perhaps in Tilbury, we're building up in Tilbury. That water now is looking for ways to get to the river Thames, and it will find a way, and it will hit the towns, you know, where it goes. Doug, just a quick one before I let the other councillors in. I think on the A13 they look like they're building a reservoir for water. It's on the left going eastbound, but nothing in your plan says about a reservoir where we can hold the rainwater that comes when we get it down. You know, we don't seem to be doing that. You know, Hanningfield Reservoir is a beautiful place to walk round, a tea shop. You know, we don't seem to be doing anything like that. Maybe something like that we could do, which would make somewhere for people to go as well. You know, it makes an extra place for people to go. But I would like to see that in there as well. Thank you, Doug. Sorry, Kirsty. Thank you. Councillor Collins?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I thought it was a very good presentation. Thank you very much. I like the ideas. Absolutely, we use the River Thames not just as for transport, but for recreation, and also a way of generating income. As far as the rest of the plan is, the only thing I was surprised about, there wasn't anything there for education. Down at the Coal House Fort, we've got not exactly a nature reserve, but a wildlife park surrounding the fort. We've got 600 different varieties of birds, and we've got multiple species of rare flowers that are now growing on the marshes. I think we'll be missing a trick here if we didn't have something in the borough along those lines elsewhere. Which, you know, when I was a child, I was taken out in the junior school. We were taken out in classes to nature reserves to look at the flowers and look at the birds and everything else, and encouraged to learn about this. I was also thinking maybe a model farm. A lot of children don't actually know where food actually comes from. Their only experience of food is just buying it from the freezer, and it comes in like that. Nobody knows where it actually comes from. So that would be nice. Also, another concern is about the southeast is sinking. So at some stage, we're going to have to bite the bullet and raise the sea walls again, or do something in order to future-proof our current flood defences. And I'm quite happy work with you on that. I'm a member of the Essex Flood Risk Partnership, and actually there is, regarding concerns about water shortages, and I think you might know something about this, Kirsty, is Reclaim the Rain. An experiment was done where you're actually catching the water. If you've got rain running off land and it comes down to the sea, instead of pumping it over the wall into the sea, you contain it and then you pump it back up the hill and pump it into a man-made aquifer, which is possibly a better and cheaper alternative to building reservoirs. Would you be considering something along that? Reclaim the Rain was that. And it was, I believe it was done in Suffolk. Can I have your thoughts on that, please?
That one up tomorrow. Thanks.
Doug, that some developers are using that already. In I think up north and sort of some of the villages where they build, where they're trying to get farmers to actually dig the edges of the fields again, because that's where the water used to run years ago, and we're not doing that here. We're leaving our fields to not do anything naturally again. So sort of if you go up Lincolnshire way, you get they're making the farmers do that on the edges so that the water actually runs, instead of running into the villages, it runs along. But some developers, I think, are trying to use that, as Councillor Collins said, reuse the water, because we waste a lot of water coming down, So perhaps it's something to look into.
Effectively, all we're doing is pumping fresh water into the sea and turning it into seawater. It's totally unusable then. We should be able to contain it and then recycle it.
Doug, picking up on what Councillor Collins said, we've got a wildlife cafe and thing that was set up. I sat on it about 10 years ago, I think, but I don't think a lot of people know it's there.
Mucking.
Yeah.
It's the one at Mucking.
And it's so far out, but it's right on the bend of the river as it comes round and goes towards Southend. Yeah, but it is so far out. I don't think it's advertised. I went up there years ago and realised that what I passed wasn't what was built, because it should have been bigger and it wasn't. And so if you get a lot of people up there, it won't fit. So, but I think Councillor Collins made a good point. That is somewhere where we could extend is to give children a day out with the animals and things. It's got a load of space around there, so it might be something to look at. We've got an animal thing on the M25 on the right-hand side coming back.
Cross Farm, is it?
Yeah, it's like a farm thing for kids to go to. You can see it. Yeah. And we've got another farmy-like thing. Is it Buckingham Hill Road? Right down the bottom, or is that also on Mucking? That sits on the right. That's got a little wildlife sort of where people can go. But I don't know of any animals that actually we've got, which would, as you said, would benefit the kids. So I'll just bring Councillor Arnold in, as he won't get...
Hi, Doug. Thank you very much for the presentation. Actually, I'm a newly elected member, so everything for me is new and very interesting, and this certainly was. Yeah, just really, I just sort of like to make some general comments, really, and it's just obviously picking up on some of the areas that you covered. I'm actually quite a frequent visitor to Gravesend. I go over on the ferry, and it's actually a fantastic kind of waterfront, and the residents walk down there and meet, and it's a fantastic place. I take my grandson there quite regularly. And I know our river frontage isn't sort of similar in many ways to the Kent side, but I would really like to see as much effort being made to the river frontage as possible. And I know we did touch on the Grays Beach area, and again I do go there quite relatively regularly. I don't know what works can be done to seawall to make the views of the river much better. Because I think there are some areas where it dives below, and I know you can walk round to the new flats as going sort of London bound, so to speak. There's great view in there, but it's not kind of people friendly as such. Not like it is on the other side. There's very little by way of refreshments, cafes, etc., etc. And I know by the Wharf Pub, it's a fantastic kind of location, but there's nothing there. And I don't know if we are looking to to enhance these areas much greater. And I think people would travel to these areas, and not necessarily even on foot. They would get in their car. It's a bad way to say it, but they would actually travel and go there. Likewise with the Tilbury down by the jetty. I mean, hopefully there will be funds available there to make that much area down there. That could be a lovely spot. So obviously I'm looking forward to sort of seeing all this sort of come to fruition over the next sort of several years. I mean, it was one of the reasons why I sort of got into sort of council, is because I found the riverfront is so exciting and what could be. Thurrock really needs it. I think really it's far too late. And the other thing as well, really, just moving on to the green side of things. Obviously, the Lower Thames crossing is coming our way. None of us like it, but I think it is coming our way. Shakes of the head, we shall see. We'd all love to see it not to happen, but if it does, I don't know how sort of creating a green lung all the way around, the motorway itself. Maybe really starting from South Ockenden to the north, and then coming right round. I mean, do we actually work with a highways agency or anything like this, or can we, if they are the body that we need to speak to, as regards sort of the investment that's needed, the huge investment? And I think this is serious ways we need to look at, and things we need to look at to sort of mitigate the damage and the toll it's going to take on our borough. So do you actually work with the agency, or what? Is there any thoughts on that, please?
might need to kind of direct your queries more towards them than us, if there are specific features that you think would like.
There is members that sit on that, Kirsty.
Okay.
There are members that sit on that, and they're very, very good. I think they're questioning all the time. And as Councillor Arnold said, if we'd have picked D, which would have taken it on the 130, but it just goes back. It doesn't make sense because it just goes back to the M25. So it's going to cause congestion back, you know. And if I thought it was going to bring something to Thurrock, I think we'd probably be more in a way of, but it has blighted people's lives already. So it's caused people to move from the area. It's caused people to can't sell their homes, or they've sold their homes and they can't sell them on because of the blight that's sitting there. So I think it's done a lot of damage already to people, especially in Alsett. I think it's done a lot of damage in that way. But if there was just a glimmer of thinking it could do some good for Thurrock, I'd be all for it. But I can't see any benefit for Thurrock. I don't think anybody will make me believe that. So, Councillor Arnold.
Yeah, I mean, really, I mean, just sort of coming back to that, I mean, I think it's kind of really, it's imperative that any new development that comes our way that is maybe bordering or running anywhere in the proximity of the Lower Thames crossing, I think, you know, we really need to focus our minds and make sure that this like I say, forestry, green lung is actually in place and developers know this, and the room needs to be created for it, and it has to happen. There is no way we can let this opportunity pass, I think.
Thanks, Councillor Arnold. Does anybody else want to say anything? No. Councillor Pearce? Yeah, of course you may.
Thank you, and thank you very much for your presentation. I like the idea and hope it goes ahead with the riverfront, because I was with Councillor Redsill a few years back on a boat trip. Yes. And we were saying, why can't we have something like this in Thurrock? So I hope that goes ahead. That's the good one I like on this. And secondly, you mentioned allotments. I thought they were a dying breed, but I like to think that they will come in. Yeah, the thing of the future, because everyone wants them, I think, yeah. So I'm glad to see that's there. Also about Grangewater, I had fears that was going somewhere else. I'm not quite sure, but I hope we keep that, because there's a lot of sailing and we're keeping it. Thank you. That's it. A good presentation. Thank you very much.
Just Doug, just coming in on Councillor Pearce said, a few years ago I found a bit of housing land, and I opened up and we put 60 allotments in, and they went very quickly. So I mean, if you've got any bit of housing land, then open it up as an allotment. You'll be surprised how many people will take it on. You know,
well,
and
we lost one in Aveley.
Yeah.
Allotment, so.
Well, mine's right by the rugby club, so all I keep telling the people on the allotments is sell your produce to the rugby club. You know, start doing a little bit of selling. You know, all your vegetables. They need things like that, which is good. But no, and we've got to do something. As Councillor Pearce said, we are supposed to be bringing the water taxis from London up this way. I can't wait to see a proper river taxi that actually goes from Gravesend to Tilbury back to London for trips. Because as Councillor Pearce said, we did go on a trip once to have a look at. Well, I know the river. I've spent my life on the river, so I know the river really well. But a lot of people don't get that opportunity. You know, just to go on a day, small trip, just for a water taxi. You can have a cup of coffee, sit and look at what's happening up the river. You know. Because, as I say, it's shut off from us, you know, and I think that's, you know, just because we've got a wall there doesn't mean to say on high tide that water's going to still come over the top. You know, it can happen. So, but thanks, Doug and Kirsty, for if you want to come back on anything. think they helped with COVID, Kirsty, because people could go on their allotment and be on their own. And I think it did a lot of people a lot of good, you know, where they could get out there and just dig and do, you know. So I think my hope to lots of councillors look for a tiny bit of housing land that nobody's using, because mine was just a mound, you know. I mean, I expected to find bodies in there or something, or bikes. So we found bikes, motorbikes, everything in there. It was just a mound, a big mound, you know. But we obviously we got the team out to dig it over, and it's produced something. There's all little sheds gone up, and everybody's talking to each other. It's lovely. It's a good community feel to it. So it's really been.
Especially if you've got no garden.
No, it's brilliant, especially for people in flats who want to get out there.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I think we may need to rename the strategy as the blue and green strategy after all the talk tonight.
Kirsty, Councillor Watson just wants to say something.
Thanks, Kirsty. Thanks, Chair. Is that okay? So can we just go back to a bit about the flooding, about what Councillor Collins said? Is there an opportunity within this strategy to have something where we can hold water or take water from the land if it's becomes like we think it's going to, like the floodplains or up in the east, like Councillor Collins says? Because just this minute that's come through on my phone, because I do this sort of thing, apparently there's going to be a drought likely for the South England and Wales after the driest 8 months since 1976. So we're obviously sitting in the middle at the moment of we've had fires, we've had in the borough, out of the borough, and it will be a good way of being able to take excess like water, store it for these sort of things, especially if this is the start of a climate emergency, is what they're saying. That at least Thurrock somewhere has got that little bit of backup instead of the fire brigade going, we're running out of water, which they did in Sutton. They were going, we need to find the next bit of water. So can we just sort of like think about how we can harness water for emergencies, or and then you can filter it, and if we have too much and goes back into homes and community spaces, or water the land, or whatever needs to happen. So can you try and add something like that into this strategy? Would be very well received, I think, by us.
Yeah, particularly the man-made aquifers.
Glad you mentioned that, actually, Kirsty, because in planning, East Anglia Water and all the water companies very rarely turn up at planning.
They don't turn up at all.
No. I mean, I've spent 10 years on planning and they don't come. And so there's no opportunity there to ask the questions that we want to ask, especially the people. You've got a good planning committee at the moment. So I think with those asking questions, we'd like to get Anglia Water or somebody to planning. You know, I think it's a good thing. We need to do that. You're writing that down, Kirsty?
Yeah, no.
I think they've just got to be on planning. When things come up, like developments, I think they need the water companies there just to ask questions of, because I don't think you get that opportunity at all. Thank you, Doug. Did you want to say anything else, or you all talked out?
all talked out, yeah. Apologies, I'm suffering a bit of a cold today.
It's all right.
Yeah, just slightly off peak, but yeah, just to say thanks again for all those comments. Yeah, really useful, and certainly those points about not just flood risk, but water management, water capture, water reuse. Yeah, hearing very clearly. So I think we'll try and bring in that content and a bit more detail on that where we can. I mean, as I've mentioned, that can operate at a whole range of scales, from the kind of reservoirs and large aquifers that you've been talking about, right down to what you do on a development from where the rain lands. So you can capture the rain through your green roofs or your rainwater harvesting measures, or in turn through your swales or other forms of sustainable drainage, and you have this ideally.
Thank you. I mean, you mentioned in your spiel that you've done, I mean, you mentioned golf clubs, and most golf clubs have got water on. They hold water, and water features get your ball over that water, and get it onto the other side. So I think we should be pursuing golf clubs a bit more, perhaps, because they are greenery. People can have a walk round, and it's good. It's at least they have water features on the courses. Even if it's a public course, we haven't got. I don't think a public course here. Brentwood have, but we haven't got one. So ours are all private golf clubs. But that's the sort of. Pardon? Yeah, you've got Bellas in Poles Leisure. Yeah. Say anything there. I'll shut up now. Thank you, Kirsty. Thank you, Doug. Very much. We're going to lose Doug, are we? You going to go, Doug, or are you going to stay?
I'll leave you to it if that's okay.
You need a hot toddy and telly.
And telly. And football
My son's
tonight.
birthday, so I'll get
Oh, lovely. Oh, okay.
give him a pat back.
Yeah,
But thanks for your time.
we'll sing if you like.
Oh, no, we don't want that.
No, right.
Chair.
Okay.
Chair.
Chair.
Yeah, before I have to go.
There's a lot of work that can be done with officers and us to find out exactly what is going on in Thurrock with water. Yes, because it's been discussed at so many meetings, hasn't it? And we need it. I'll probably give too much information, me. If I was on it, I'd be tearing my hair out. So.
Well, I'm on the Essex Established Partnership Committee anyway.
Yes, you are. So you'd be good to be on there.
I'd
So
love to be on that to make it more relevant to here.
No, I think it'd be good. So if we can set up a task and finish group just for flooding and water and the river and everything else to do with water. I think we need to do something. It's a bit like what I said earlier on about getting farmers to dig again, because we're not doing that. Yeah, you go up north and they're making them do it. The councils are saying to them, you've got to do it, because there's a risk of the villages, where you've got flat land, there's a risk the villages are going to get flooded.
Keep the drains clear.
It's the old-fashioned way of getting rid of the water. Yeah, then it finds its way out to the rivers and wherever it's going, you know. So, can I leave that with you, Rihanna? Sorry, Councillor Watson.
Can I just put another twist on the flood and the water? Is that a lot of our villages and a lot of our places are quite old, and the pipework is very old as well. And when you've got, and I mean underground pipework, like I know in Purfleet is, and the small, and there's Averley and places like that. And when you're going to start developing on there, and there's additional water going through those pipes, you're in a problem of you're going to start getting a backfill. So I don't know how we would ensure that would be okay, because that will be an additional burden on whatever area that's going to be. So if you're sitting up in Stamford East, it's already flooding already. The pipes are probably this size. You've put another block of flats on there of 50. That's got to go through that size and it come up and start. So it's how that's managed as well, Kirsty, about thinking about what is a flood strategy for the development, not the council, but actually the developers' flood strategy.
If we start off this task and finish group, I think that's something that can come into that. I think it's questions that have got to be asked, Kirsty. So if we set up a task and finish group, perhaps even Doug can come and talk, and on a different level. You know, we've got so much to talk about on the work programme that we already do. I think to lift that off of onto something else and just do water and flood is a good thing.
I think it's
sorry.
really, apologies.
No. That's brilliant, Kirsty. Thank you. Councillor Collins?
I was going to say, if the average house, if it's about 500 square feet, to my calculations, produces in this area 300 gallons of surface water a year. So if you just use that as a rough rule of thumb, it should sort of give you an idea of what we're producing, what extra surface water we're going to be producing, because if the concrete wasn't there, the water would soak into the ground. And that's before we even calculate the sewage output. I have no idea how to work the one out yet. I'm working on it. Thank you.
Not to bring up something that was on the television, Kirsty, there was something about flats, was there, that the water had got into the concrete? And it was the trees' fault. They put the trees in, but the trees were pushing out the concrete, so the water was... So it made the foundations of the flats unreliable. So you've got to look at all aspects of water. As I say, water can be...
It's everywhere, doesn't it?
Yeah, water's a great... it's like a fire and water. You know, they know they don't mix, but that water still...
It provides.
It
and then
pushes through,
destroys,
yeah. I mean, we've had water over that before the wall was there, because as you go up to Grays, you get up further, sort of all sit black shots, you get higher up, so the water won't meet. But Grays will be the first to take the water. It does come over, so no. As long as we've got your as long as we've got your support with that task and finish group, Kirsty, I think you can add a lot to it. And okay.
Do you propose and second it, or is it?
Yes, I propose that. Is that right, Rihanna?
I'll second that then.
And Councillor Collins has seconded it. Okay. Lovely. Thank you for that. Have you got to go now, Councillor Collins? Okay. Councillor Collins is leaving, Rihanna.
Try to get as much damage as I can, then I'm going to go.
It's fine.
We'll remember you.
Yeah.
It was my 41st wedding anniversary.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yesterday.
Oh.
Yesterday. I was going to get home and have a drink.
Oh,
Don't blame
It
you.
never happened.
No, don't worry. Still have the drink.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Item 9.
Yeah.
We're on to now. Yep.
So you just mentioned item 8. Won't start.
Yeah, item 8, we've not got strategic planning. Who was the... Who? Tom was going to do that one. He's not very well, so we're going to bring that back to a later date.
Yeah.
Probably the next one, September, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, lovely. Have we got you, Kirsty, for this one?
Yes, you've got me.
Okay. Off you go.
I'm just loading it up.
Okay.
Hopefully you can see the slides on the screen. Okay?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, okay, so I have included a slightly larger update than normal because I was appreciating the fact that there are new members on task force, just to make sure that everybody's got that kind of
Kirsty, can I just butt in there? Sorry to, I'm just giving you a little glass of water if you want a little, because you have got a lot to do on here. You said 230 sites have all been not allocated, but they've been noted. Can we have sight of those 230?
So that's just the 230 is based. And there's others that.
I just think it'll help us to have sight of those 230 sites. Because when it comes down to site specific, and then we're asking councillors to put sites forward, we at least know that maybe the 230 are in that mix.
Yeah, I mean,
It'd be brilliant, Kirsty, because I think it would give us a little bit of information, you know, because if we find a bit of land within our ward, you know, and it's already there, we sort of haven't got to worry too much because it's already been sort of put forward. But that'd be handy. Thank you.
yeah, I mean. that.
Is that a
And
free?
it's-
Is that a sorry, Kirsty? Is that a free service to
No,
developers?
it's a paid for service.
No, do developers have to pay for that?
Yes, yeah,
Yes.
they pay for it, and then.
So
what
do we
we're
know how much
using-
that is, Kirsty?
I've got a list of fees somewhere, but I haven't got it to hand.
Okay, could you
Sorry.
send that to me?
Yeah, I think it'll be on our list of fees and charges in the council as well that we're publishing. So yeah, I will send that across.
Thank you. Thank you, Kirsty. You can have another drink now. Can I can I say your knowledge is brilliant. If you've come back to the council, you must be knowing Thurrock very well now. You probably even know it as well as me now.
And that's saying something.
Yes, definitely. No, it's brilliant, Kirsty, to have that knowledge, to be talking to us with probably other councillors. Hope they feel the same. That it's brilliant. What you've given us over the few months is beyond, you know, anything that I think a lot of officers haven't got that knowledge that you've got at the moment. So it's greatly appreciated, very much. I've only got a couple of questions. Some of these meetings that are going to happen, especially with the youth, we used to meet with the youth cabinet quite often. We don't seem to do that anymore as councillors, and I think that's wrong. Because if they've got views, we need to know what their views are. I go into schools a lot, but not every councillor does. So I think we need to get that going again. I think if these meetings that you're going to have, perhaps it would be good to involve the local councillors in wherever you are, you know, so they can be there and hear some of the stuff that comes back. Because although most of us do door knock and we do talk to our residents very often, if we're going to get into that structure, we need to be there as the local ward councillors. The other question is about the new, it's going to be called infrastructure levy. I only have one worry about that some of it doesn't come back to where the houses are actually built, in the ward they're being built. Because I lost 2 million in one of the homes that got built in my ward, so we didn't, Blackshots and Woodside didn't get any of that money, but I can't moan about that because that was the Development Corporation, so we didn't have any say in that, how it was put forward. But and may I say, no greenery on that development either, so we didn't get any of that money back. You know, we've put up with the housing and no infrastructure there either. And didn't get any money back from the 106 money. So as long as this infrastructure levy is going to be some money coming back to the ward that puts up with the housing, then I have no problem with that. But I want to see some of it coming back. You know, if you're going to have, I don't know, 750 homes being built in your ward, you want something back from that. It used to be, years ago, Kirsty, it used to be the normal health highways, you know, but down the bottom, down the bottom was always communities and libraries. That was always down the bottom. And I don't think anything got spent on communities and libraries, but that used to be at the bottom of the 106 money. Also, there's the thing that developers, a lot don't know, that if we don't spend that money in a certain amount of time, the developer's quite in their rights to ask for that money back. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think a lot of developers know that. I mean, but we've done that in the past where we haven't, you know, we've gone over that time and we haven't spent it. So we need to look at that more. I still think that it's got to, if the housing is going up in a ward specific, then it should really, a lot of it should be spent in that ward, because that's going to take the brunt, you know, of where we're going to have houses, wherever they're going to go. You know, we're still going to take the, I mean, I feel like a record sometimes, Kirsty. I've probably sat here for too long, but I remember sitting on there with talking about infrastructure 15 years ago, and we still haven't done it. You know, the infrastructure is a lot of countries are good at putting the infrastructure in first. We're not. You know, we don't do that. So we're still talking in our whatever. We're still talking about 4 lorry parks, and we've got 1. You know, and we. I know it's going off kilter a little bit, but people moan about lorries parked everywhere. But if the lorries have got nowhere to go, when they finish their tachograph, they can't go anywhere. You know, and if there's nowhere to put them, that is something else that ought to be on the local plan. You know, we ought to get to these lorry parks. We need them badly. And it's all right saying there's Tilbury 2, but that is not in the middle of a borough. You know, they need to be, the one we've got is in the west of the borough. So we need lorry parks, or we need 4. There was always, 10 years ago, we need 4. They never came. And I think we've got to, we all want, we don't want lorries parked, but we all want logistics to get to us. You know, we need all that stuff to be brought to our home or our shops or wherever. So we need those lorries. And if we don't give them a lock-up for somewhere to go, to have a shower, to have something to eat, we're not fulfilling our part, I think. So that is something that's got to come on the local plan. Thanks, Kirsty. The other thing was getting members involved in some of these meets that happen. Lovely, thanks, Kirsty. Anybody else want to come in?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Kirsty. It's very, very interesting. Listened intently there. I mean, obviously, been sort of active locally for quite a long time. Obviously, I've been part of many discussions and heard many discussions. Obviously regarding future developments, and obviously it's a huge topic for all of us. But it obviously was it's very, very interesting just listening to you going into much greater detail, and it's certainly going to give us a lot to think about over the next few months. But I'm just kind of stating the obvious, really. But we do have to build a lot of houses, don't we? And we are, as a council, we are actually all going to have to take on our responsibility and kind of make sure that the right sites come available in the right places at the right time, etc., etc. The right infrastructure's in place. But again, it's obvious we do need to do this, don't we? Otherwise, government is going to force it on us, aren't they?
So the risk is obviously if we don't plan to meet our needs, then somebody else will.
Yeah.
And that could be through government intervention because we don't have an up-to-date plan in place, or that could be through a situation that I spoke about earlier where we end up in a planning by appeal type situation where the planning inspectorate decides that actually this greenbelt site coming forward because it's delivering new homes is the best possible place, and then we get another one, and that incremental growth can be very damaging when it comes to planning for things like infrastructure, like how we link in better with urban regeneration, trying to create a better situation for existing green and blue infrastructure. Obviously, my job is plan making, so I'm an advocate for plan making, and I'm certainly an advocate for the council taking control over the process. I mean, our previous plan was a good plan, but times have moved forwards, and we now need a plan that kind of responds to those new challenges that we're facing, and the things maybe that we tried to address previously that haven't quite gone the way that we'd have wanted. So I think it's really, really important that we keep up momentum, even with all that uncertainty around national significant infrastructure projects and changes to planning reform. And we actually, we speak with communities, we speak with other stakeholders, and we start to pull together a plan that really does deliver transformational change and will give a positive impact and a legacy for people within Thurrock. I mean, this plan isn't going to happen overnight. We're talking about, sort of a plan for the next 15, 20 years. And when you think about, the people on youth cabinet, when I sort of spoke to them about, I asked them, well, how old were you in 2015? I think one of them said that they were, I don't know, 2 or something. And they're now, sat on youth cabinet. So it just shows, how time moves on. And we need to make sure really that we're planning for those people, we're planning for kind of the future of Thurrock in a very, very positive way. Given everything else, we're not working to a blank sheet of paper, and there are certain choices that we'll need to make. Some will be easier than others, but I think we do need to start kind of working on this, having those discussions with communities, getting things out in the open as much as we can, and appreciating the fact that as we move through the plan making process, things will change, because they'll change because we're having conversations with people, because we're getting new information in, and I certainly don't think that the plan that we put before council at the end of this year will stay the same between now and when it gets adopted, and that's okay. That's the way plan making should work.
Okay. Yeah, because obviously, you said that the long-term kind of the ambitions for the borough, they're going on sort of 10, 15, 20 years. I've even now got an eye on my grandson, just coming up to 6, and I'm thinking, when he gets married, he's going to be looking for a home in here, and I think it's but it's going to come, and I now sit here thinking I need to play my part in actually making that these homes are delivered in these areas, and and I always think back to actually where I live now. When I've got memories when I was very small, there was nothing, there was open fields everywhere, and the routes that I used to take to and from early school and things, there was nothing there. Now there are big housing estates. There was all the local opposition at the time. My father was a house developer actually many, many years ago, and I know the opposition that he used to get with things. And all these things get replaced over years, don't they? You have to accept that the development changes, and we have to think for the future generation coming, and not actually what we believe is right now. We must be more forward thinking, and completely understand that this isn't about us. It's the people that follow on from us. So very exciting times. I did enjoy your presentation, and I'm looking forward to the next few years.
I think the young will find their way. Sorry, I've got grandchildren and older children, and they will find their way. You know, and they will. If you bring them up properly, they will find their way, and they will have their own home. It will come. I think this is our last chance saloon. This one, but as Councillor Arnold said about thinking about the young, we've also got to remember that we've got a big elderly population. And because we're thinking of the young, we mustn't forget the older ones who need other housing, you know, and I know I bang on about it a bit, but we haven't done that bungalow build that we should do. Because if we've got one person living in a 4-bedroom home who doesn't want to live in that 4-bedroom home, but they have to exodus up Northway, because that's the only way. They don't want to leave their family, but they have nowhere else to go. So if we're not going to look after Thurrock residents that already live here, we're not doing them a disservice too. You know, and I think we've got to, you know, it's fine to think of the young, but they will find their way.
But bungalows take more ground, don't they?
I think it's just the way we build them. You know, there are ways of doing it. But I think we've got to look after them too. You know, we haven't got. Yeah, we haven't got.
You want a bungalow, don't you?
Oh, I'm not bothered. But I think we've got to. We mustn't forget the older population. You know, I'm talking about 65 and over, who over 55s want places. You know, and they don't always want big places, because as you get older, you don't want to do whatever it is, gardening and everything else. But I think I don't want to do them a disservice and just think about the young. Because we have to remember that there are people that need our help too. You know, we need to free those big 4-bedroom homes up so that families can actually move into them. You know, it's not all about rebuilding, it's about getting the right time and place to free those houses up. Sorry to go on, Kirsty.
It's definitely something that we're thinking about.
Not everybody over 65 wants to go in a home, Kirsty. No. You know, they still want their independence. They still want somewhere nice. You know, and I know there are a lot of builders who are bringing that into their developments, which is good, because not all older people want to live with older people. No. They need that intricate being with younger people, because it helps. It keeps you younger. But I'll let Councillor Watson come.
Thanks, Kirsty. Thanks for your presentation. It was really interesting, actually. I do agree with Councillor Redsill, though, about the elder population, the way they mix, because there is actually Devon Gardens in Ockenden that's got a quite lovely little mix of like the elderly people with the young, and those sort of complex. And there's a handyman or gentleman that makes sure they're all looked after, and they've got their own little community area there. So for something like that, going forward, that'd be really good. And I'm assuming the housing strategy will actually feed into the local plan about what sort of housing needs we would need, which is not just private, but also some shared ownership, and social housing would be really good as well. So you've got that whole mix of you'll be able to move people through. I know we've got a lot of houses that we are supposed to be building. I know there's 12,000 supposed to be going into Ockenden. I don't know where in Ockenden, but they're looking in Ockenden. Might be on Brandon Close. It's the only place left. And so I think that I know we've all got to have our share. I know that at the moment my ward itself has got massive regeneration going on there. I think it's going to be 4,000 homes in Purfleet on Thames, so they've got quite a bit. In terms of your presentation, can I just ask you a couple of questions? In terms of the actual local plan, are you going to be doing a master plan across the whole borough and then do individual master plans per ward of what it will be looking like after you've done your assessments?
So what we tend to have in a local plan.
Thanks. You can tell you're so passionate, Kirsty. So the other thing I wanted to ask you about is if we're going to start going on to undeveloped land like greenfield spaces and green space, that will probably wouldn't that sort of like fly in the face of the GBI strategy?
It completely does, but our mitigating harm. But it's all part of that balance, and that's the tough thing. PINS will have expected us to have looked at existing green spaces, green field sites before we look at green belt sites, even if that bit of green belt is a bit of scrubland at the edge of the settlement that nobody really uses.
Okay, so on the Chair, on the PPA stage 1, is that for any developer, regardless of how many units? So would it be the same process for a developer of 4 units, or does it start at a developer of 1,000 units? How does?
Okay.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. And the community panel, how is that going to be chosen? How are the people going to be chosen to be sit on there from per spatial area?
Kirsty, could we stop doing everything online? You know, and remembering there's a lot of people out there who don't do computers, telephones, but may have some really good things to put forward. There's lots of friends of groups that are there doing good things already in the wards. If we could get to them, you know, some of them might want to be on it. So I think if we do it that way, not everything online, please.
Yeah, we're definitely open to in-person stuff.
Yeah, good. Get in touch with councillors, because at least that's your knowledge to get out into the community. I'm conscious of time. I'm just going to let Councillor Pearce come in with the last question, and we must.
I'll be quick. Thanks, Kirsty, for your update on what probably will happen, and I won't be around to see it in fruition in 20 years' time. No, I won't. Getting back, because we're conscious of time. Yeah, knowing me, I'll still be around. Conscious of time when we said about the elderly, Councillor Redsill, about bungalows, and they usually take up a lot of space. I was thinking on the lines of, you know, used to get the old prefabs. You know, I'm really going back now, the prefabs.
Yeah. 1945 now, you
Yeah, I'm going back in time. Yeah. No, not prefabs as such, but the modern day prefabs. Such.
Done
I
it
did
in
know-
Stamford.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they've done them
They're
in
gonna-
Stamford, haven't they,
Yeah,
Kirsty?
that's
They've done some in
for
Stamford
elderly,
already.
for the elderly. Oh, that's good. Yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah, that's it then. Thank you.
We ought to be looking at mobile homes as well, Kirsty. I think there is a development coming to Thurrock, isn't there? I think. Yeah, not modular. They're proper mobile homes, but brick. Yes, similar to that sort of thing. They've got one in Balvan. Is really lovely, you know, and then obviously they've got a lot of older ones on there, but they've got a lot of new ones coming forward. So perhaps that is something we ought to look for in Thurrock. So we're looking across the stream of what is out there, because I think there's quite a bit out there, you know, to look at. But thanks, Kirsty, thank you so much. You've made tonight very interesting. I applaud you. You really know what you're talking about. So just to, we've all enjoyed it. I think I speak for everybody. I hope so.
Am I okay to sit in for the last item? Is that all right?
What, the work programme?
Yes.
Yes,
is
of course
that
you are.
okay?
Yes, of course you are.
Thank you.
Right, Rihanna, sorry we've gone on a little bit. We've obviously got to move the transport model. We're going to move that till September. Yes. Yeah, the task and finish group, I would really like that to come to the December one, really, because I think that gives the task and finish group, when it gets set up, it gives them time, doesn't it? It gives you all of August, all of September to have a really good talk on that, and then bring that to the 5th of December. Yeah, is that all right? Has anybody else got anything they want to bring forward?
Chair,
Yep.
there was an indicative work programme that Kirsty suggested
Kirsty,
in a presentation.
would you like anything to come on to?
Do you want me to pop that on the screen and then you can have a look at it again? Or
Yeah, okay.
okay, bear with me 1 second. Um, yeah, so I originally had for September the local plan update, which would be a lot more concise than what I've delivered this evening.
Is that a number of homes? Yeah.
The climate, well, any update we've had on evidence since then more broadly, and some
Okay.
feedback. The climate change strategy, but I think we'd probably better off removing that if we've got the transport model conversation, as it's going to get too lengthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then also to bring the infrastructure delivery plan, which is that capacity work that we've been testing in terms of the spatial planning areas, because I think a lot of the conversation we've had tonight has been around infrastructure, and we might have had those conversations with Anglia Water by then as well.
Yeah, you can bring a few things back to us then, can't you?
Yeah, and then for, I've got November, but you said December.
No, December's the next one. Yeah.
Okay, I've got the wrong date in here then, sorry. We
it's
should
September.
have by then spatial planning area baseline assessments and opportunity analysis, which I think would be useful to talk through. Again, moving more away from that kind of looking at growth more holistically.
And obviously
I mean,
the housing is coming to full council in October, isn't it?
Yes. Well, yes.
So
At the moment,
you-
that's what it's programmed in for.
So we might have more of that. You might be able to tell us more about that in the December one.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Okay.
I'll just stop sharing again.
Sorry, Chair, can I just... Oh.
Yeah, by all means.
Kirsty, have you spoken to Sean at all? Because he has already got agenda items sitting on here, and I'm not sure if they can be merged of any type.
I think they...
Kirsty, thank you very much. You can go and have a gin and tonic now. Okay.
I had a bottle of wine. I don't know about wine.
Yeah.
I was just excited to leave the garage that I've been camped out in. But thank you very much for your time this evening, members.
You're very
Apologies
welcome.
that I couldn't be with you in person.
It's all right. You're very welcome. It's been very, very interesting. Very. Thank you, Kirsty. You take care.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.